Well, first of all, you've got to designate the cartels, as I said, as a transnational narco-criminal terrorist organization. We're not fighting against a business organization. We're fighting an insurgency. You also have to cut off the taxpayer-funded benefits to people coming here illegally. We have to assume control of the border and create a border control zone because the federal government has abdicated their constitutional duty, as according to Article 4, Section 4. And then I think most importantly, the non-governmental organizations that are getting federal taxpayer money to put illegals on buses and planes, we have to revoke their licenses to operate here. They're 501c3 not-for-profit organizations, and we just don't allow them to operate in Texas.
So you would basically, you talked about the Constitution, as you mentioned earlier. You would trigger the invasion clause, basically, that the federal government is not protecting the state from a foreign invasion, and that would give you the power to use the National Guard in ways that really it's not being used right now.
You're absolutely right. And so in creating a border control zone, we would have, if you're familiar with Texas, people out there, Highway 90 to the north, the Rio Grande River to the south, and you already got the designated sectors extending from the El Paso sector, Big Bend sector, Del Rio sector, Laredo sector, and Rio Grande Valley sector, and you put your troops there and you give them the right mission, task, and purpose, rules of engagement, and you put them on the the infiltration routes, and they interdict the people coming in, and you force folks to go through the normal border crossing points instead of looking at the points in between. And we can still utilize the border wall as a physical barrier, but you use it in the places where there are wide open spaces to channel and funnel people in so that you can better control that flow coming into Texas.
Do you think your military background, your training, dealing with strategy, the movement of personnel and so forth, will come in handy in dealing with the southern border?
Without a doubt. I mean, you think about it, back in 1991, I was deployed over to protect the border of Kuwait. I spent time in Iraq and 2.5 years in Afghanistan, so I've been in these situations fighting against insurgencies or an invasionary force, and it's just basic tactics, military tactics 101. How do you understand the terrain? How do you control the terrain? How do you give your forces the right task and purpose and the mission, and equip them and prepare them, and most importantly, the rules of engagement. And we've got the cartels firing across the border, and our governor's telling our troops not to fire back. That's insidious to me.
I didn't know that. So I've been saying don't defend yourself?
Yeah, basically. I mean, when you fire across an international border boundary, that's an act of war. And so a lot of people here in Texas are pretty upset that we're focusing so much on Ukraine where we're fighting an invasion right here where people are shooting across our border.
My view is we can focus on both. You know, Biden didn't focus on both is what bothers me.
Absolutely.
So darn much. And what about the taxes in Texas? I suppose you'll never raise an income tax there and so forth.
No, no. We have a state constitution. The amendment to the Constitution says we can't have a state income tax, but our property tax is really Marxist in nature. I mean, it's a progressive tax, and it's also eliminates private property ownership, and it's the sixth highest in the country. So I say we go back to how we did taxation prior to 1917 when we created the personal income tax, and that was a consumption-based tax because I think that you should never tax people on their income. You shouldn't tax people on their property. You should tax people on the goods and services that they're going out and purchasing. So that's what we're going to get done in the 88th legislative session next year.
And that's very, very important so people can determine what their taxes are going to be based on how they conduct themselves. You don't want to tax people out of their homes.
No.
You don't want to tax people's income because then you're striking at them. You can literally lose your home if you don't pay your taxes and can't afford to pay your property taxes, as opposed to cutting back on something, and reducing your taxes that way. This is something conservatives have supported for decades and have done nothing about. So this is near the top of your list, I take it.
It is absolutely the top of the list, and it'll be one of the emergency priorities that when I give the State of the State address next January 2023.
Do you find that you're up against the establishment, the Karl Rove types, the Bush umpires, people like that?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about that, and that's why the governor has amassed such a $60 to $70 million war chest. But, paratroopers, we don't care about what's in your wallet. We care about what's in your heart. And I don't see a governor that's leading with his heart. I don't see a governor that's leading and caring and putting Texas first. He's putting all the other lobbyist groups and all the other special interests first, and Texans see through that, and they want to change. Yes, sir. Absolutely right. As a matter of fact, it was Karl Rove and that establishment that was lined up against me when I was running for state party chairman, and we ended up winning 76% to like 24%. So I'm used to going into the fight, and I'll always have three smooth stones, and that's all you got to have.
Does Karl Rove think he owns that state? He certainly acts like he does.
Yeah, well, he's about to get a pink slip.
Yeah, okay. And how about the Bushes? Have they endorsed anybody?
No, they've sat out of this, but I think we can pretty well understand where the establishment is here in the state of Texas. And that's the problem, Mark, is that we have got to start making a clear delineation between constitutional conservatism and progressive socialism. When I'm, reading your book, American Marxism, we're up against a philosophy of governance. This is not about political parties anymore. It's about understanding the right and true relationship between the individual and the institution of government. And sadly, we have people with an R after their name that they still believe that the institution of government is supreme and sovereign over the individuals. And that's not the United States of America. That's not Texas.
All right. Well, Alan West, any final words this evening before Election Day tomorrow?
Well, we just want to make sure that people get out and vote. It's March the 1st, and the interesting thing, Mark, is March the 2nd is Texas Independence Day, the only state in the United States of America that has its own Declaration of Independence and its own Independence Day, and the decisions that we make tomorrow will solidify or cause us to lose future Independence Days for our children and grandchildren. So I want people to come out and make sure they're participating and voting.
If you were governor, would you do everything you could financially to make sure that you would cut off Russia, Communist China, and these other entities that really are our enemies?
Oh, absolutely right. I mean, we've got two Chinese telecommunications firms that are here in Texas, ZTE and Huawei. We're going to send them out of Texas. We're going to enforce our Texas Infrastructure Protection Act. And the other thing is that that's where the fentanyl comes from. It comes from China. They send it to the cartels. They manufacture, refine it, bring it across the border. And it's killing Americans. I mean, we're talking about last year, 100,000 Americans died because of fentanyl.
Alan West, one more time. If people want to help you and you need them to turn out tomorrow in droves, where do they go?
They go to west4texas.com, west4texas.com. And I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you face to face, Mark.
All right, brother. You're such a tremendous individual and gentleman, a class act. God bless you, my friend.
God be with you, and be well.